Hi there, this is Ronnie Ambers Knight, coming at you with another video. And this video was really prompted, it's one I've been wanting to do for a couple of years and haven't gotten around to it, so I'm going to do it now. The inspiration for it was prompted first of all by a poster on a bulletin board of BioWare, calling themselves Straight Male Gamer, who essentially was um, telling BioWare off, decrying them in fact, for putting into Dragon Age 2 a male character that would flirt with them and try to start a relationship with them. And his view was that in allowing this, BioWare were in some way uh, disadvantaging straight male gamers who were, according to this poster, the majority, and that only their views should therefore count. The second inspiration for this was the release of the Blue Rose role-playing game by Green Ronin to showcase their True 20 role system. This game is a high fantasy game. It's set in a very egalitarian society where being gay is perfectly okay. And what it really sort of inspired in me and what I wanted to get off my chest was answering the question, how do I feel as a GM if there are characters in the game who are gay? Does it change the way that I GM? Does it change the way that I set up a game? And to add a general point about gay characters in role-playing games in general, well, as a GM, as a person, may I say first and foremost, I have absolutely no problem with gay characters. Several of my players have differing groups, but several of them are either gay or bisexual, and it's never bothered me. It's just never been an issue. They're gay, they're bisexual. Why, hey, it's just, to me, it's like turning around and saying they're straight. It's no different to me. Does it change the way that I set up a game? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that if I'm thinking that a romantic relationship is going to happen with character A, then obviously I might have to change the genders involved. But it doesn't it doesn't change the fact that I'm going to set up a romantic relationship, or whether or not I'm going to have a romantic relationship and a subplot, only the gender involved. And it really doesn't bother me in terms of the setting. The setting for most RPGs are pretty much set in stone, and I'll get back to my point on that. As a general point with regards to gay characters in role-playing games, I think it's the wrong question, funnily enough, and I'm asking it, and I'm asking the wrong question. For me, the question is never, should you allow gay characters in role-playing games, because the answer is invariably yes. The reason for this is one of two. Either the player is gay, and the character that is a projection of themselves, and we all do it. We all play characters who are merely how we would envisage ourselves if we were playing those characters, if we were them. And if we are going to allow that across the board, then you have to allow gay characters. Because gay play, if your player is gay or bisexual, they may well be doing the very same projecting that you do. And it's either okay to do that or no one's allowed to do it. Then you get those players who want to play someone who's a little different. They really want to get out of their personal comfort box and play something different. And if that's the case, then again, you've got to allow for gay characters, because it's one facet of a person that might be different from the player. I have one player who is straight, and she likes to play gay characters. She's very comfortable with that. I have no problem with it. The question, however, is never whether you should allow gay characters. It's how out can those characters be in the setting. I'll tell you what I mean. The game that I use most is a game called Castle Falkenstein. I won't go into the details of it other than to say that it is a high fantasy steampunk game set in an alternative, but fairly close to our own Victorian Europe. I mean, it's our world just slightly changed. Because of that, I as a GM take the view that the usual Victorian morals and principles that were around at our Victorian times would hold true. In which case, the question is, can there be gay characters in Falkenstein? Of course. Can they be openly out? Not really, because it would be criminal. If you have a setting set in medieval times, something like Chivalry and Sorcery, Merry England, which I know is an extension for basic role playing, and something like Pendragon, then I would say not only would the character face imprisonment, they're probably going to get burned at the stake for being some sort of heretic or demon or witch or something, for being against the natural order, which is not something that I believe, because I believe quite the contrary. But that is the world, and you have to remain consistent within that world. It doesn't stop players playing characters who are gay, but it does place extra problems for them. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because you can get a great deal of good drama and intrigue and tension out of that situation. Fast forward through to any game set in our modern times, well, you could pretty much say, will they be allowed to play gay characters? Yes. Should they be openly out? Really depends which part of the world you're in. I reckon in some places in America, most places in the UK, you should probably be out and okay about it. But you're always going to get pockets of people who are pretty nasty. Nick Griffin, I'm looking at you. Or you can set it somewhere like some of the nation states in Africa who have a very backwards policy on gay people, or in the Middle East where you can be imprisoned or indeed executed for simply being gay, which is just barbaric in my opinion. But that is the world. Fast forward to the future. Star Trek. If your character is a member of the Federation, then I reckon, yeah, you probably could be out. Because that would be consistent with Gene Roddenberry's worldview, universal view of humanity and where he wanted it to get to. Whether you could be a gay Klingon, on the other hand, I think that's on for debate. Star Wars. Well, that really depends on whether you listen to George Lucas or not. Are there gay characters in Star Wars? It'd be bloody silly if it weren't. Whether they're out and proud and wear, gay Jedi with pink lightsabers, now that would be fun. But they're there. I'm sure there are. And I would be happy for them to be open. Would it be a utopian society where everyone accepts it? Of course not. There's always going to be narrow-minded people. But again, that creates interesting role-playing possibilities. Any RPG set, say, in the Warhammer 40k universe, particularly something like Dark Heresy, I reckon gay characters, yes. Openly out, heavily doubt it, because they just get killed. So it's a very puritanical air about them. As for fantasy, again, it's all of a muchness, really. Fantasy is fantasy. It's whatever you make it. Again, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, probably not for being out in, because it's a very dark game. But then again, you've got dark fantasy games like Dragon Age, the RPG, the actual tabletop version of the video games. Obviously, you'd have to be able to allow gay characters because they allow them in the video games. D&D, I'd say that was pretty much neutral. I think you can do whatever you like with D&D. Set it as you like. Then you get the opposite end of the scale from something like Warhammer, which is very totalitarian, to something like Blue Rose, which is very egalitarian. Do I have a problem with Blue Rose? No and yes. I have no problem with their ideology. I think it's laudable. I think it's something to be applauded and stood up for. I really do. I think they're a little heavy-handed with the way they handle it in the actual wording. I think they could have been less almost puritanical in their egalitarianism, which sounds very odd to say, but it's very puritanical. I think they could easily make the case without actually having to bang you over the head with it. But I think it's perfectly fine to have that game there. There are totalitarian games out there, so why not have an egalitarian game? I see no problem with it. You buy the game. If it sounds like your cup of tea, buy it. If it doesn't, don't. But personally, I think it's perfectly acceptable to have gay characters in role-playing games. I think the only question, as I've said, is how out can they be safely to pursue a romantic relationship or just to live. That can create interesting facets for plots for the GM. So I'm opening it up to you guys. Put it in the comments below. Let me hear your thoughts. I will be surprised if people have a problem with it. I really do. I say that not just from being a humanitarian myself. I really would be genuinely surprised if people have a problem with allowing gay characters in games. But I'd like to hear what you think. So comment away and let me know. And I'll talk to you again soon.